Hi everyone, I'm back with a video. I apologise, it's been 2 weeks since I uploaded that pregnancy test video. I did attempt to film last weekend, but I sat down for an hour just repeating myself over and over, and I just thought to myself, I can't upload this footage. I wasn't making sense. My mind was all over the place, and I just needed an extra week. I returned back to work last Wednesday full time, so sitting down to film a video has been really tricky with working full time, so that's why I haven't really come on here until now. Firstly, I want to thank all of you so much from the bottom of our hearts for your love and support. We were flooded with messages, comments, emails over on Instagram, Facebook, here, YouTube. I was honestly overwhelmed, and all of your messages of encouragement and hope really did give me strength throughout those days following the devastating news, the negative pregnancy result. Kind of coming to terms with the fact that the transfer failed was hard, but it was definitely hands down so much easier, or made so much easier, thanks to all of the support that we felt surrounded us. So firstly, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I read every single comment, every message. I tried to respond, or at least like all of your messages, just so you knew that I'd read them. Tim and I sat down and read a lot of them together, and they made me cry and, you know, gave me hope. The transfer we thought was going to be it, unfortunately wasn't. Everything was perfect leading up to it, as you guys know. We transferred a PGS normal embryo, the only PGS normal embryo we had. I knew it wasn't a guarantee for success. My specialist was hopeful. She said that she would be surprised if I didn't become pregnant. Of course, I took that with a grain of salt, because I've had medical professionals seem positive and optimistic in the past, only to be crushed when I realised they were wrong in their assumptions. You know, no one knows what's going to happen. No one can predict the future. It's out of our control at the end of the day. It's out of the doctor's control. So when she said she'd be surprised if I didn't become pregnant before the transfer, this was, it did give me a little extra hope, but I was still, you know, she can say that, but she doesn't know. No one knows. She said she thought we had a 60% chance that it would work. The odds were in our favour, but unfortunately, again, just like so much of our journey, we seem to fall on the wrong side of the odds very often. As you saw in the video, I was devastated, heartbroken, as was Tim. We're just exhausted at this point. It's we're just so ready for things to go right, and I think I was just very confused. A lot of questions going on in my mind. So that we filmed that pregnancy test video 2 weeks ago today, and in those 2 weeks my mind has been on overdrive. I haven't been able to kind of switch off. I've been trying to work out in my mind what makes most logical sense as to why this didn't work, trying to kind of work out where we should go from here. I wasn't confident this last transfer would work, but I was pretty positive. And so to have it not work with everything done right, you know, we couldn't have done anything more. To have it not work is just, yeah, it's hard. So yeah, basically I've just been feeling quite lost and overwhelmed with it all. I haven't had a chance to speak to the doctor yet. I have my follow-up appointment, or what the fuck appointment, on Monday, the 2nd of October, so in a few days. I've been adding to my list all week. of things to ask. I'm not holding my breath to be given the answers that we need. I don't think she'll be able to give them to us, unfortunately. There's so many variables when it comes to this kind of thing, and sometimes there are no reasons as to why things don't work, or confirmed reasons as to why. In the last couple of weeks, I've been coping relatively well. The days following the news that the cycle failed, I felt quite numb. The day after the video we shared, I did take another test in the morning, not because I had a feeling it could maybe be positive, because I just knew at 8 days past 5-day transfer, which is the equivalent of 13 DPO, I would get a positive by then. I know my body, and I've been pregnant multiple times in the past, so I know that the HCG does kick in relatively early for me. I also have had hyperemesis, which is severe morning sickness, in my pregnancies in the past, so I know, I just knew if I was pregnant I would have got a positive that day. So I did test the next day just because I wanted to stop taking the progesterone unnecessarily, and it was negative. I continued with it anyway, and then a couple of days later was my blood test. It was on the Monday morning. I got my blood drawn, and a couple of hours later my period arrived, so I knew for sure that it hadn't worked. I wasn't surprised that my period had arrived. I wasn't holding on to any false hope. I was refusing to. I've done that many times in the past, and I just knew I didn't want to put myself through that extra pain of staying hopeful when there's no point. It was over and I needed to come to terms with it and deal with it and grieve. So when the nurse called me, she didn't even call me the same day of my beta, she called me the next day, and it was in the afternoon. So I'm, can you imagine if I was one of those women who was waiting to test, or waiting to find out through the blood test if it had worked or not, the agonising wait I would have been in. But anyway, clearly they have no idea. Show me the news that I already knew, and I asked to speak to the embryologist, and she said she'd get them to give me a call that afternoon. The embryologist, in hindsight, Tim and I felt like the embryologist was possibly holding something back from us on the day of transfer. We felt like she was holding back information, or there was something that she wasn't telling us. The embryologist did tell us on the day of transfer that our embryo had collapsed. This can happen, but it hadn't re-expanded prior to transfer. So usually I think embryos collapse prior to being frozen. I think sometimes the embryologists artificially force the embryo to collapse just to be frozen. I'm not sure why exactly. Perhaps Google that one. On the day, the embryologist told us that our embryo hadn't re-expanded, but it was likely to do so once it was transferred in the uterus. I didn't think much of it on the day. I didn't want to be jumping on Google and worrying myself, and I had never heard of a collapsed embryo before, but I didn't look into it at the time because, as I said, I didn't want to worry myself. But in hindsight, a couple of days after the transfer failed, I jumped on Google and found a few studies, and I discovered that embryos that are transferred before they've had a chance to re-expand are less likely to implant once they've been transferred. So that was interesting to me. During our trying to conceive journey, I've become pregnant 6 times. 4 of those all natural conceptions, 2 of them fresh embryo transfers, both chemical pregnancies. But all of those pregnancies happened without me being on steroids, intralipids, all of the treatments that I was given this time round to lower my elevated natural killer cell levels. So I don't think my uterus was the problem. It just doesn't make sense given my history. There's obviously multiple things that need to go right for an embryo to implant, but the fact that it was transferred when it was collapsed and it hadn't re-expanded is possibly, in my mind, an indicator of possibly the embryo not doing well post-thaw. When an embryo is thawed and if it's collapsed, obviously seeing that re-expansion under the microscope is a good sign, and it's a sign that it's alive and doing what it should. The fact that it hadn't re-expanded between thaw and transfer could have been an indicator that the embryo was struggling and not coping well post-thaw. That was my theory anyway. I spoke to the embryologist and asked many questions, some of which she couldn't answer, so she had to pass me over to the senior embryologist, who could help me more. She wasn't overly helpful though. She kind of dismissed the fact that an embryo is less likely to implant if it's transferred collapsed. She didn't really confirm or deny that. She kind of circled around some of my questions. I asked what the grade of my embryo was, because I've never been told. It was a C grade embryo, A being the best, C being not as good. D grade embryos, they don't even freeze. So it makes me wonder how much of a fine line that is between grade D and C. If they don't even bother freezing grade D embryos, obviously a C grade embryo may be borderline. I don't know though. Obviously I know many healthy babies are born that were originally C grade embryos. They have every chance of becoming a healthy baby. But I have also heard from a lot of women who have told me that their PGS normal embryos that were C grade have never worked, but their embryos that were higher grade have. So it makes me wonder. I've just been so desperate to have an answer as to why it didn't work, just so we know where to go from here. And the embryologist denying that a collapsed embryo is less likely to implant kind of left me feeling lost. The embryologist wasn't very helpful. I did feel very defeated after speaking to her. And this was on the Tuesday, so a few days had passed and I'd been, as I said, feeling quite numb. And then at the end of the conversation, I just said, okay, that makes me feel great, kind of sarcastically, because I don't have any answers. And she said, are you okay? And I burst into tears. It was just that one question that just, tears came flooding out. I was speaking to her still, but she couldn't understand. I had to repeat myself a couple of times because she couldn't understand what I was saying. And I just kind of also talked to her about the fertilisation report for our most recent egg collection, our third egg collection in total. The fertilisation report, we had 15 mature eggs and only 4 fertilised with ICSI. Which is a very shocking result. Our second IVF cycle, 6 out of 8 mature eggs fertilised, which is with ICSI, which is much, much better. That's what you would expect. But to have 4 out of 15, it's pretty, what is going on, you know? And I told her that we didn't receive any answers at the time. She looked at my file. She agreed that it was an extremely disappointing result, and she said there are no lab comments on the file at all, blank. She said that means the eggs looked fine and the sperm looked fine. There's no explanation as to what happened. It's just so beyond frustrating not having answers, not having reasons why. I do wonder whether it was a lab issue. It may have been, we'll never know. I wonder if it's an egg quality issue. But again, That doesn't make sense to me, really. My AMH level is normal. I'm 29. I've never smoked, I've never taken drugs, I don't drink, I've never really have drunk alcohol, I don't dye my hair, you know, all this stuff I eat healthily, I don't have PCOS, all of these things that can contribute to poor egg health. I don't do any of them, or I don't have any conditions that could contribute to poor egg health. I could still maybe have poor egg quality, I don't know. The embryologists can't really tell you much. They just say everything looks good. So how do you know where to go from there? The low fertilization report, something's going on with that. That's not normal, I don't believe. But then again, of those 4 eggs that fertilized, 3 of them made it to 5-day blastocyst. All of them not the best quality though. It's all very confusing. I did also ask the embryologist what the gender of our embryo was. I felt like I wanted to know, not to torture myself and go over the what could have been, but just to know in my mind. I was curious. It gave me peace finding out. She told us that it was a boy. I had a feeling it was a boy. The day I got the call that we had 1 PGS normal embryo, my gut feeling told me it was a boy. So that was interesting, and obviously it not having worked is extremely difficult and heartbreaking. I don't think I've ever felt in this journey as lost as I do now, but I'm still hopeful that we will get our baby one way or another. Adoption is not on the cards at this stage. I have heard from a lot of people who have attempted to go down the adoption path here in Australia, and it's not an easy path to go down. It's not an easy path in any country to go down, but a lot of adoptions are sourced overseas here, and it can be, you know, over a 7-year process, probably even longer in some cases. You're not in that time allowed to try and have your own children. It's just not, we're not there yet. Some people have suggested surrogacy. It's not a path that we know we need to go down at this point. It hasn't been confirmed that I'm not able to carry my own baby. It could very well be an embryo issue. So regardless of whose uterus you put the embryo in, it's not going to work if the embryo is not viable for whatever reason. So it's all just very confusing. Looking at my history and the fact that I've gotten close to 8 weeks pregnant with an abnormal embryo that had triploid syndrome, which is 3 sets of chromosomes. We heard the heartbeat, saw the heartbeat many times. It's just odd that I can get to that point in a pregnancy with an abnormal embryo and not even get to implantation with a normal embryo. It seems to me that it must have been an embryo issue. With all of my previous pregnancies, I haven't been on any steroids or anything to decrease my natural killer cell levels, and I've gotten the furthest along in a pregnancy I've gotten is 9 weeks 4 days. So maybe it's just a numbers game. Maybe there's an issue with our embryos. Maybe it's the protocol, IVF protocol that I was on. I honestly don't know. Maybe it is my uterus, but I don't feel like it is. And the thought of, you know, doing a donor embryo even, I'd be absolutely open to it. I want to be a mum. But seriously thinking about it, it is overwhelming and it's a lot to take in. I don't know if that's the path we need to go down though. I don't know which path we need to go down because we don't have answers. We don't know why. And so it's just, this has been thoughts that have been going through my mind for the last 2 weeks. Just trying to work it all out. I don't want to waste time doing things that aren't going to work. We've been on this journey for 3.5 years now. I want to work out what the cause of our issues is and get to the bottom of it. We originally did IVF because my tubes had become damaged and blocked following an infection I got from my first miscarriage and the D&C I had. My left tube is completely blocked and my right tube is partially blocked. That's why we did IVF in the first place. We didn't have any kind of infertility issues that we were aware of. We still don't, really. It's just the recurrent miscarriage and the fact that not many, and the odd fertilization reports and the low numbers of blastocysts and the low quality, I don't know. Anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself, so I'm going to stop going around in circles. I don't have any answers. I'm not sure we'll get any answers when I see my specialist on Monday. I'm hoping she can provide me with something that will give me some peace or make me feel positive moving forward. We still have one frozen embryo. It wasn't PGS tested, so we don't know whether it's normal or abnormal. It's going to be a lot more expensive to transfer this embryo than it was our previous. It's going to be a couple of $1,000s. It's scary not knowing. I don't, as negative as it sounds, I don't have a whole lot of hope for this embryo. I'm going to try and build that hope and positivity up between now and transfer, which I don't know when the transfer will be at this point, but I've been updating quite regularly on Instagram and Facebook, and I mentioned how scary it is. You invest, your emotions and your energy and your finances, and when it doesn't work, it is devastating and discouraging, and it's scary to keep moving forward when there's no guarantees. How can you feel positive about a transfer of an embryo that is the same grade as the others? It's a C grade embryo. We don't know if it's normal or abnormal. I've had 6 miscarriages. How can you feel positive at this point? I'll find it from somewhere deep within. But yeah, it's just been hard. I have managed to keep it together and been coping surprisingly well, to be honest. I have had a couple of days where I've just, the other night I was lying in bed and just broke down. All of these thoughts that I'm thinking and concerns and questions and it's frustrations just building to the surface, and sometimes you just got to let it out and in order to kind of reset. But yeah, I don't know where to go from here, really. We're not overly confident about doing another IVF cycle at this point anyway. Tim's definitely not. I am willing to do whatever it takes. IVF hasn't been kind to us. We haven't had much luck with IVF, so I'm hesitant to go into a 4th IVF cycle, a 4th egg collection. It'll be interesting to see what my specialist says on Monday. Trying naturally is something we've also thought about, but again, it's also scary because we did IVF with PGS testing just to avoid any potential miscarriages and embryos with a chromosomal abnormality. We wanted to just increase our chances of success, avoid further D&C surgeries, and just end this chapter happily once and for all. It's exhausting. You feel like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden you're just in darkness again. The thought of having a 7th miscarriage is just... I don't even. I also don't know if my right tube, which was partially blocked, has blocked up again. So we may be wasting our time trying naturally. A question I'm going to be asking my fertility specialist about on Monday is possibly getting an HSG, which is where they put the dye in your uterus and the tubes and see if they're open. I haven't had that done before. I've had a laparoscopy, which is the surgery. I want to try and avoid a laparoscopy. The recovery was horrendous. But yeah, looking into doing the HSG. I think the rough plan at this point could very well change, but in December we'll have to pay a few $100s to have our embryo, our one embryo, frozen for another 6 months. So we might be doing the transfer before December just to avoid that extra cost. And you know, if we can transfer it early before December, then why not? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Prednisone, which is the steroid, I've been weaning off. Today is my last day on 5 milligrams. So I've gone down from 20 milligrams to 10 for 5 days and then 5 milligrams for 5 days. So I'm weaning off that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, all over the place. I'm sorry for the annoying video. I don't even know if this has made sense. My mind is obviously in a shambles. So this video will probably be the same. It's gonna be a fun one to edit. So I apologize for all of my umming and ahhing and I don't know and could be this, could be that, who knows. I'm hoping I'll have answers soon, but again, I'm not hopeful. Again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all of your love and support and suggestions. They fill me with so much warmth and honestly encourage me to keep on fighting and keep on going. And as lost and confused as I feel, we are definitely not giving up on our baby. It is what it is. It's our journey. And we have to enjoy each day, you know, not wishing for better ones ahead. That saying is always, it's very true. We are very blessed in many ways. It's just, it gets hard to not feel left behind. You know, I have friends who are having their second, third babies when, you know, we were trying around the same time for our first, and I'm still don't feel like we're even anywhere closer. I know we are each day closer, and when we do have our baby, it'll all make sense and we won't have it any other way. We won't want a different baby. We won't be able to imagine our lives without that baby, and I know that it's just hard to not know when it's going to happen, how, and it'd just be good to have a crystal ball and to have a clear reason and indicator as to what's going on. If donor embryos will, or donor eggs or donor sperm, I don't know, but if one of those things will help us have our baby, then we'll do it. But at this point, the doctors haven't suggested that there's an issue with us. The low fertilization reports could suggest that there is, could also suggest a lab issue, could be the protocol or the meds that I was on for IVF. We have had more luck conceiving naturally than we have with IVF, so maybe it is the meds. I don't know, we don't know, and it's very, very, very frustrating, but it is what it is, and we'll see what my fertility specialist says on Monday. Wishing you all the luck in the world for wherever you're at in your journeys. I cannot even believe I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers. It just blows my mind. I never even thought I'd reach 100 subscribers, let alone 9,000 and something. So I'm so humbled that so many people want to follow our journey and have decided to click that subscribe button. I'm so glad I started this channel because I've come across so many beautiful people, and honestly I don't get many nasty comments at all. You do sometimes expect to get that when you're putting yourself out there on the internet. There are nasty people out there, obviously. So it has been a wonderful experience to come across all of the beautiful, kind-hearted people. You're all so special to us, and we could not be more thankful for you. I will be sure to update you very soon on what our fertility specialist says. Take care of yourselves, love and baby dust. Speak to you soon. Bye guys.
It's been